He stood there, arms crossed, smirking like he had already won. "You do not have what it takes," Julian said, his voice dripping with condescension. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice or show even a flicker of anger. Instead, I calmly slid my resignation letter across his polished mahogany desk and watched his face go from smug to utterly confused in about 2 seconds flat. "If I do not have what it takes," I said, keeping my tone perfectly level, "then let us see how well this team runs without me." 2 weeks later, the codes failed. The largest client in our portfolio refused to deal with anyone but me. But I am getting ahead of myself. My name is Roger Vance. I am 48 years old. And until that Tuesday morning, I was the lead systems architect at Apex Software Solutions, a mid-sized tech firm in Portland, Oregon. I spent 7 years building their core infrastructure from the ground up, making sure our systems could handle millions of transactions without a single hiccup. I knew every line of code, every database schema, and every digital workaround we had ever implemented. When I joined Apex, we were just a small group of 5 developers working in a cramped basement office. Over the years, I watched the company grow, and I designed the technical foundation that made that growth possible. The morning everything changed began like any other. I was at my desk by 7:30, holding a cup of black coffee. My home life was a chaotic but happy routine. That morning, my wife Catherine was busy getting our 9-year-old son Toby and our 6-year-old daughter Lily ready for school. Both kids had decided their wardrobes were completely unacceptable, leading to a minor crisis. Catherine handled breakfast duty while I played fashion consultant to 2 kids who had stronger opinions about clothing than I had developed in my entire adult life. "Roger, this shirt makes me look tiny," Toby had complained, holding up a plain blue tee. "You are 9, Toby," Catherine had called out from the kitchen. The morning chaos meant I was running on coffee and pure determination when I walked into the office, which probably was not the best state of mind for what was waiting for me. Julian Mercer had been hired as our new vice president of engineering 3 months prior. He came from a Silicon Valley startup that had burned through millions of dollars in venture capital before collapsing. Julian was all about buzzwords. He talked constantly about synergy, disruption, agile transformation, and bleeding-edge frameworks. He wore expensive designer sneakers with his tailored suits and made sure everyone knew he had worked at companies with famous names. From his first day, Julian made it clear he thought our methods were outdated. It did not matter to him that our systems worked flawlessly or that our client retention rate was 97%. None of that mattered to Julian because we were not innovative enough for his taste. During his first month, he suggested rebuilding our entire transaction backend using a software library that had been released only 6 weeks prior. When I pointed out that using an unproven, barely tested framework for systems handling millions of dollars in daily transactions was a massive risk, he smiled patronizingly. "This is why we need fresh perspectives, Roger," he had said. Fresh perspectives, as it turned out, meant his perspective, and any alternative viewpoint was labeled as resistance to progress. I had dealt with difficult managers before. You do not last 7 years in the tech industry without developing thick skin, but Julian was a different breed of difficult. He was dangerous because he possessed absolute confidence without a shred of competence. The email hit my inbox at 8:15 on the dot. The subject line read, "Team Restructuring Initiative." My stomach tightened before I even clicked it. Corporate speak for someone getting pushed out is always dressed up in words like optimization and initiative. The email announced a brand new organizational structure. My team of 8 engineers was being dismantled and redistributed across the department. My role as lead systems architect was being evolved into a collaborative matrix model. In plain English, I was being demoted, and Julian did not even have the courage to tell me to my face. The person appointed to oversee the technical direction of my former team was Julian's close friend from his previous startup, a guy named Jared Floyd. Jared had exactly 2 years of professional experience and a habit of using the word literally in almost every sentence, usually incorrectly. I read the email 3 times, hoping I had somehow misread the text. But the message was clear. I was being pushed to the sidelines. The worst part was that the email had been blasted to the entire department simultaneously. Julian had not even given me a heads up. I found out I was losing my team at the exact same moment the summer intern did. My phone began buzzing instantly. A text from Oliver Higgins, my senior team lead, read, "What on earth just happened?" Another text from Chloe Jenkins, our senior back-end developer, asked, "Roger, are you okay?" The messages kept pouring in from my team, all of them confused and angry on my behalf. At least I knew their loyalty was real. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked straight toward Julian's glass-walled office to get some answers. I knocked once on the glass door and stepped inside Julian's office. He was on a call, laughing loudly. He held up a single index finger, the universal sign. "For I am more important than you." Wait, I waited. I was good at waiting. I had waited for promotions, for project approvals, and for my ideas to be credited to me instead of being repeated by others. I stood there for 90 seconds while he finished his conversation. When he finally hung up, he did not apologize. He leaned back in his leather chair, smiled, and said, "Roger, what can I do for you?" "The restructuring email," I said, keeping my voice calm and measured. "We need to talk about it." "It is not personal, Roger," he replied immediately, which is the phrase people use when it is entirely personal. "We are breaking down department silos and encouraging cross-functional collaboration. You are still a highly valued member of our engineering group. I built the systems this entire company runs on," I said. "My team has the highest performance metrics in the business, and our project completion rate is outstanding." "Past performance does not guarantee future success," Julian interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "The technology landscape is moving fast. We need leaders who can adapt and embrace new methodologies." The implication was clear. He wanted me to believe I was outdated, because I preferred testing code thoroughly before deploying it to production. "Is this about the Callahan project?" I asked him directly, because I stand by my decision. Using an untested microservices architecture for a client that requires absolute stability was a bad idea. Julian's jaw tightened. The Callahan project had been his signature proposal, his chance to show off his vision. I had been the senior voice pointing out the flaws, and the chief technology officer had agreed with me. Julian had smiled back then, but I saw the resentment in his eyes. This restructuring was his revenge. "This is not about a single project," Julian said, his voice hardening. "This is about building a team aligned with the future. And frankly, Roger, I am not sure you have what it takes to lead us there." The office went quiet. Through the glass walls, I could see my team pretending to work while watching us. "I do not have what it takes," I repeated slowly. "You are technically competent," Julian said, as if he were doing me a favor. "But modern leadership requires vision. It requires inspiring people to take risks and push boundaries." I had spent 7 years keeping this company afloat. I had mentored every junior developer and turned down higher-paying job offers because I believed in our mission. And this man, who had been here for less than 100 days, was telling me I lacked vision. "You know what, Julian?" I said. "You are absolutely right." That caught him off guard. His eyebrows rose. "You agree?" "Yes," I said. "If what it takes is chasing trends blindly, deploying broken code, and treating experienced engineers like obstacles, then I definitely do not have what it takes." His face turned red. "That is not what I meant." "I am done here," I said. The decision was surprisingly easy. I had spent years trying to be the perfect professional, only to be sidelined because I hurt a VP's fragile ego. "You are resigning?" he asked, looking slightly worried. "I will have my written resignation on your desk by 5 o'clock today," I replied. "I will give you the standard 2 weeks of notice to transition my tasks. After that, you are on your own." I walked out before he could say another word. My hands were shaking, but it was from relief, not fear. I returned to my desk, looking around at the quiet engineering floor. My team members were typing away, unaware that the technical leadership they relied on was about to shift. I felt a wave of sadness for what we had built together, but also a sharp spark of excitement for whatever lay ahead. The news traveled fast. By lunch, my inbox was flooded with supportive messages. I spent the next 2 weeks writing detailed documentation that I knew Julian and Jared would never read. I created a 127-page system guide, recorded video tutorials, and built troubleshooting wikis. Jared showed up to only one transition meeting. He spent the entire time looking at his phone and asked if I could literally just email him the main points. On my second to last day, Oliver Higgins took me out for lunch. We are taking bets on how long before the system crashes, Oliver said over lunch. That is not fair to Jared, I joked. Jared asked me where the production passwords are, Oliver said. They are in the secure password manager, and he has full access. He has not read a single line of your documentation. Yesterday, he suggested rebuilding our login database over the weekend because he read an online article about how simple it is. The database that supports 50,000 users? I asked. Oliver nodded. Yes, that one. Half the team is looking for new jobs already, Oliver added. We were loyal to you, Roger, not to Apex. My final Friday arrived. There was a small gathering in the break room with cake and a card. Julian made a speech about my contributions, which was hypocritical given his actions. I packed my box, handed in my security badge to Albert, and drove home. I texted Catherine that I was officially unemployed. She replied that she was cooking my favorite dinner. The transition had begun. The first week of my independence was a strange and unsettling experience. After years of 60-hour work weeks, the sudden silence of my home was deafening. I was accustomed to the constant chime of notifications, the urgent emails from system monitors, and the endless meetings about server capacity. Suddenly, my mornings were entirely my own. I spent them drinking coffee on the back porch, watching the rain drift across the yard, and helping Toby with his third-grade math homework. The homework involved complex circle drawing methods that baffled both me and Catherine. Dad, you are drawing the groups wrong, Toby told me one morning, looking at my sketches with intense disapproval. They need to be in rows of 5. I sighed, erasing the pencil marks. In my world, 5 times 5 is 25, no matter how you draw the circles. Numbers are supposed to make things simpler, not more complicated, I muttered. Toby just rolled his eyes. Catherine laughed, leaning against the kitchen counter. Just follow the curriculum, Roger, she said. Do not try to teach him binary code just yet. It was nice to have the time for my family, to actually be present for breakfast, but a part of my mind felt restless, like a machine running without a load. I updated my resume and reached out to a few former colleagues, but my heart was not in the corporate job hunt. I did not want another cubicle or another VP of engineering who did not understand the difference between a compiler and a database. On Monday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID was an unknown number, but in my new situation, I had to answer everything. Roger Vance? A woman's voice asked, sounding crisp and professional. Speaking, I replied. This is Rebecca Stone, Director of Operations at Zenith Logistics. We met briefly at the Technology Summit last year. Zenith Logistics was Apex Software Solutions' most important client. We had built their custom supply chain routing and authentication system 3 years ago. I remember, I said, polite but curious. I heard you recently departed from Apex, Rebecca said. Word travels fast in our industry. We are launching a major system expansion next quarter, and your name was recommended by several colleagues who know your work. We would love to discuss a consulting role with you to oversee the architecture. I am flattered, I said. But before we get to that, there is a more immediate issue, Rebecca continued, her tone shifting to one of genuine concern. We are experiencing intermittent errors in our live production system. It started late last week. Sometimes our dispatchers can log in fine, but other times the system rejects valid credentials. In our business, a 10-minute delay in authentication blocks our freight dispatchers. It causes delivery trucks to idle at the loading docks, which costs us thousands of dollars in port fees and late penalties. I contacted Julian Mercer at Apex, and he insisted it was a user training issue. When I showed him server-side error logs, he became defensive and claimed his team had everything under control. I sat up straighter, my mind immediately analyzing the technical symptoms. What kind of errors are you seeing? I asked. Authentication token failures, she replied. It is highly inconsistent, and they cannot seem to isolate the cause. I knew exactly what was happening. Jared Floyd had tried to implement his simple weekend database rewrite without understanding the underlying security protocol. I designed that authentication system under strict parameters, utilizing a proprietary security framework. In fact, before joining Apex, I had developed and registered a unique security architecture. Under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, I held the intellectual property rights to those core libraries. I had granted Apex a non-exclusive license to use them, but the license agreement strictly prohibited any unauthorized modifications to the core security modules. If they altered the code without my written consent, it was a direct violation of federal copyright law. Furthermore, the contract between Zenith Logistics and Apex contained a strict service-level agreement that guaranteed 99% uptime. If the system remained unstable, Apex would face massive financial penalties and a breach of contract. I see, I told Rebecca. Look, Roger, she said, I am going to give Apex until the end of the week to resolve this. But if they cannot fix it, we cannot run our business this way. We will have to invoke our contract clauses. The contract allows us to demand specific personnel to resolve critical issues at Apex's expense. We want you, Roger. You built this system, and you are the only one who understands the code. Are you available? If you call me on Monday, I will be ready, I replied. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, a slow smile forming. I did not want Apex to fail, but the thought of Julian Mercer having to call me back to save his department was incredibly satisfying. I spent the next 2 days reviewing my offline backups of the Zenith system design, verifying the license agreements. On Thursday, Oliver Higgins texted me. You will not believe this, he wrote. Jared deployed a code patch directly to production without testing it because the staging servers were down. My jaw dropped. It was the ultimate amateur mistake. What broke? I asked. The token refresh cycle is completely broken, Oliver replied. Jasmine is trying to fix his code, but it is a complete mess. Julian is telling everyone it is just a minor bug, but we are losing clients. It took less than 2 weeks for Julian's vision to crumble. Friday arrived, and the situation at Apex Software Solutions reached a boiling point. Oliver texted me that the Zenith logistics system had suffered a complete 45-minute outage during peak shipping hours. Rebecca Stone was furious. She had officially notified Apex that they were in material breach of their contract. Over the weekend, I prepared my strategy. I knew the legal landscape inside out. Under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, Apex had no right to modify my proprietary security libraries. By allowing Jared to alter the code, Julian had committed a federal copyright violation. I printed out the original license agreement, highlighting the clause that stated any unauthorized modifications would immediately terminate their right to use the software. I also prepared a draft of a formal complaint for copyright infringement under federal law. I sat in my study, going over the documents with Catherine. Are you sure you want to go through with this? She asked, pouring me a cup of tea. It could get messy. It is already messy for them, I replied. They broke federal law by tampering with my registered libraries. I am just enforcing my rights. My code has digital signatures, I explained. Every software build I registered has a unique, cryptographically signed metadata block that lists my name and my consulting LLC as the copyright holder. This block cannot be overwritten without breaking the system checksum. It is absolute proof that the intellectual property belongs to me and was merely licensed to them. On Monday morning at 9:30, Rebecca Stone called me. We are invoking the contract clause, she said. I just spoke with their chief executive officer. I told them we will sue them for damages and terminate the contract unless they bring you in immediately to fix the system. Their board of directors has been briefed, and they are fully prepared to sue Apex for the full project value of $2 million. They agreed to our terms. You are hired as our independent consultant, and Apex will pay your fee. What is your rate? My rate is $250 an hour, with a minimum commitment of 40 hours, I said. Rebecca did not hesitate. Done. You will report to the Apex offices tomorrow morning with full authority over the system. I will see you then. Roger. Walking into the Apex offices on Tuesday morning felt completely different. I was no longer an employee subject to Julian's whims. I was an independent consultant, backed by their largest client. The security guard, Albert, looked up in surprise when I approached the desk. Roger, he asked, I thought you left. I am back as a contractor, Albert, I said with a smile. I need a visitor badge and temporary building access. Albert welcomed me, processed the badge, and wished me luck. I went upstairs to the engineering floor. Julian's assistant Claudia gasped when she saw me. Roger, what are you doing here? She whispered. I am here to fix the Zenith system, I replied. Julian is expecting me. I walked straight to Julian's office and opened the door without waiting. He was sitting at his desk, looking exhausted. When he saw me, his face went pale and his jaw tightened. "Roger," he said, his voice strained. "I was told you were coming." "Yes," I said, sitting down opposite him. "Rebecca Stone hired me. I am here to restore the Zenith system." I watched him try to maintain his composure, but he knew he had lost. "This is a temporary arrangement," Julian said. "You will need to coordinate all changes with Jared." I leaned forward, looking him in the eye. "Let us make one thing clear, Julian. I do not report to you, and I certainly do not report to Jared. I report directly to Rebecca Stone at Zenith Logistics. Under the terms of the contract invocation, I have absolute authority over the system architecture. I will roll back the unauthorized modifications to my proprietary code, which, by the way, were made in violation of federal copyright law. We paid you a salary, Roger. That code belongs to us." Julian attempted to argue. I smiled coldly. My employment contract addendum explicitly excluded my pre-existing intellectual property. Under federal law, unless there is a signed written agreement transferring the copyright, the original author retains ownership. Our contract only granted a non-exclusive license. If you modify my work without authorization, you are violating Section 106, and the statutory damages can be up to $150,000 per infringement under Section 504. If you or Jared interfere, I will instruct Zenith's legal team to file a formal injunction. Julian stared at me, his face red with anger, but he could not say a word. He knew that a lawsuit would end his career. "I need full production access immediately," I continued. "Have your IT staff enable my credentials. I will be working in the main conference room." I stood up and walked out, leaving him sitting in silence. When I entered the development floor, the atmosphere changed instantly. Oliver Higgins stood up and started clapping, followed by Chloe Jenkins and Kevin Wright. Within seconds, the entire team was cheering. They had been working 80 hours a week trying to fix Jared's mistakes, and they were relieved to see me. "All right, everyone, let us get to work," I said. "We have a system to save." We gathered in the main conference room. Jared Floyd was sitting in the corner, looking sullen and defeated. He did not speak as I took control of the meeting. "Oliver, walk me through the current system state," I said. Oliver explained that Jared's changes had corrupted the database synchronization protocols, causing the random login failures. I shook my head. It was a classic rookie mistake. "We are rolling back all modifications to the authentication libraries immediately," I announced. "We will restore the stable version from my pre-existing codebase." "Jared, you will not touch the servers." Jared muttered something under his breath, but remained quiet. I spent the next 3 hours working with Chloe and Kevin to execute the rollback. We did it systematically, testing each database connection and verifying the cryptographic signatures of the tokens. We ran diagnostics line by line and discovered that Jared's code had created a memory leak that slowly consumed the server's random access memory until the entire system crashed. We reset the server clusters and restored the original database schema. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the rollback was complete. The system authentication logs showed perfect stability. I called Rebecca Stone to report the news. "The system is fully operational, Rebecca," I said. "The original codebase has been restored and all authentication errors have ceased." "Thank goodness," she sighed. "Our dispatchers are back online. We are already seeing the queue clear up." "Roger, you did an incredible job. I want you to perform a complete system audit for the rest of the week to ensure there are no other issues." "Consider it done," I replied. I spent the next 4 days auditing the codebase. I uncovered 3 other critical vulnerabilities that Jared had introduced in his brief tenure. The first was a SQL injection risk in the billing module, which could have allowed an attacker to read customer details. I showed it to Oliver and Chloe. They were shocked at the sheer carelessness of the code. "Jared did not even understand the basics of parameterized queries," Chloe said, rubbing her temples in disbelief. The second issue was an insecure application programming interface endpoint that exposed internal logistics routes to the public internet without any authentication check. The third was a severe memory leak in the transaction processor. I corrected each issue, documented the changes, and sent a detailed report to both Rebecca Stone and Apex's chief technology officer. According to Oliver, after the chief technology officer read my audit report, Julian Mercer was called into the executive office and reprimanded for over 3 hours for endangering the firm's primary contracts through cronyism. Jared quietly packed his desk on Thursday afternoon and resigned. On Friday evening, my contract concluded. As I walked out of the building, I handed my visitor badge back to Albert and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. I had earned $10,000 for 40 hours of work, and more importantly, I had proven my value. The following Monday, Rebecca Stone emailed me. Roger, Zenith Logistics is officially terminating its engineering contract with Apex Software Solutions next month, she wrote. We are launching our system expansion, and we want you to manage the entire project. We are offering you a 1-year contract at a rate of $300 an hour. Immediately, over the next 2 weeks, I established my own firm, Vance Systems Architecture. We rented a small, bright office overlooking the Willamette River and set up our infrastructure with strict quality controls. I hired Oliver Higgins as my vice president of engineering and Chloe Jenkins as our lead developer, offering them double their Apex salaries. Both of them resigned from Apex the next day, leaving Julian Mercer with an empty department and no one to run the systems. 6 months later, Vance Systems Architecture was thriving. We had secured 3 other major logistics clients who valued engineering stability over corporate buzzwords. I was working 40 hours a week, spending my evenings helping Toby and Lily with their homework without any stress, and earning 3 times my old salary. Toby's math grades improved, Lily was happy, and I even had time to coach Toby's youth soccer team on weekends. We had won both professionally and personally. I ran into Julian Mercer at a technology conference engineering panel 18 months after my departure. He was standing alone by the buffet, looking older and tired. He had been demoted by the chief technology officer after the Zenith disaster and eventually left the company. He looked at me and I gave him a polite nod. I did not need to say anything. The success of my company spoke for itself. He had told me I did not have what it takes. But in the end, his doubt had been the catalyst for my greatest success. The best revenge was not anger or litigation. It was building a life so prosperous and fulfilling that the opinions of people like Julian Mercer did not matter at all.